All right, everyone, I am so excited to welcome Scott DeRuiter onto the show to talk about a topic that is hot, will continue to be hot, is the top of a lot of agents' minds. People have a lot of opinions about this topic, and that is leads. Generating leads, purchasing, investing, buying leads, whatever you want to say about that, and how we can do it in a way that makes sense for today's market, today's modern agent, and also today's customer. Now, Scott and I met a long time ago, right?
Yeah, it's probably 5, 6 years ago.
It might have even been longer ago than that.
All right,
And
I'll
it
give you
was,
that.
and it was take you way back in time. It was for the realtor.com pilot program. Do you remember that?
Yeah, it was, we were testing the different CTAs through the lead capture forms. And I think, when you were with ERA at that time, you and I were doing that as a test together.
We were. So I have definitely had my time in the tech testing rollout phases of different things. And I remember at the time it was very exciting because was this test just with Realogy companies?
It was actually something exclusive that we're testing a couple different of the brands within the Realogy family. Now, of course, anywhere.
And I remember our broker at the time was so excited that we were picked to select and to be a part of this test. And you came down to Florida and we were going through all of it. And prior to this conversation, I was thinking about that time, right? I was thinking about the space of leads then, the
Mhm.
space where we're at with leads today. And a lot of things have changed, right?
Yeah,
A
absolutely.
lot has changed, but a lot of the principles of leads and lead management has probably stayed the same, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, there's still some, speed to the lead and some other elements that go around that that are, pretty core today as they were back then.
So, when we're thinking about lead generation, and it's so funny that you're on the podcast talking about this because this is the first time that I have talked about paid leads on my podcast ever.
Wow.
Yes.
So it's
And
perfect timing then, right?
it's perfect timing. And I'll tell you what, and don't get scared when I start the sentence, but I'll tell you what, one of the reasons why I've never talked about paid leads before is because paid leads can be a challenge for a lot of agents, right? You have to worry about, are you getting quality leads? There's a skill, a science to nurturing those leads, converting those leads. There's the issues with buying quality leads. How do you have those conversations? There's more sales strategies in there. And I just felt like for most agents and even brokerages, lead gen, lead conversion is such a hard topic and it can get very salesy, very gimmicky sometimes. And
Mhm.
I want to peel back the curtain, get to the root of it, and where leads do make sense for brokerages and agents today. So I
Yeah.
would love to get your opinion on just the general landscape of purchasing leads in today's market. What are you seeing out there?
Yeah. So again, awesome to be here. And this is such a timely topic as you mentioned a couple minutes ago. There's a changing landscape, when we talk about leads, because you have a Zillow Flex types of programs in certain markets where it's all referral based. And so that's obviously a little bit different style, but there's some still same principles there. And then there's the actual paid leads. So we're talking about an upfront cost for leads. So today, I think what we're going to talk about a lot more are the upfront leads, the ones that you would purchase from, say, a realtor.com or, another source, and kind of go from there. So, when you take a look at an online lead, right, when you're deciding on purchasing something, the first thing I'm going to tell everyone is you can't make online leads 100% of your lead gen strategy, right? It has to be a balanced approach. But if you do incorporate online leads, you can really look at this as a way to increase and build your SOI.
Mm.
So, so there's a cost of sale of everything. So if you were a marketer and you were running your Google ads and you were trying to attract people, say a marketing qualified lead into your funnel, there's a cost per acquiring that lead and there's a customer acquisition cost. And you can do this across any industry that you're in. So in real estate, you can also think about it as a cost of acquiring a lead or a customer, or in this case, an SOI, someone
Mhm.
who's in your sphere over that long run, right? So let's just say this, like, let's just say you did have to purchase, a lead, and there was a cost associated with purchasing that lead, and you were able to close, and we'll talk about ratios here in a second. Well, now that person's in your database. And if you're
Mhm.
doing all the right things with your follow-up, so you're nurturing them, you're continuing to reach out to them after the close, they can produce repeat and referral business for you. So that's kind of the mindset that, really you kind of have to be considering when you're purchasing an online lead.
That's very interesting that you said that. When we think about leads, I think a lot of people think cold leads. I'm getting this lead and I'm getting this maybe bogus email address, or I have to follow up with them 15 times and I don't get anywhere. You think about them sometimes not even as actual people at the other side of that form, right? And what
Yeah.
you said
Mhm.
is that think about it as a way of building your database, building relationships, building that sphere of influence that you have. So I think hearing that, if somebody's like, I don't know about purchasing leads, I
Mhm.
think that is a huge mindset pivot to think about it as growing your network, making new connections, and still coming from a place of value when you are servicing these leads. That's
Yeah.
a very interesting kind of shift that I think a lot of people take when they think about purchased leads.
Yeah, I think, let's face it, if you have 100 leads that come in through an online source, you're really, if the best of the best are going to close or convert like a 3 to 5% ratio, because there are going to be folks that are just interested in, thinking they're going to get more information by clicking the button, or,
Mhm.
they weren't that serious. They're just kind of browsing and starting their journey. However, when you do some of the math and the ROI, you can boil that down to it actually can make sense, in that, say 2 to 5% conversion ratio, in the end. And here's one other thing I just want to note, and we can talk about this a little bit more. Out of the buyer leads that are submitted, when people are submitting buyers, what the research is showing is that anywhere in the 35 to 40% range of those buyer leads that are being submitted also have a home to sell.
Interesting.
So there also could be opportunity to gain listings out of the seller leads or the buyer leads as well.
So you have the opportunity there to get even more than that one initial transaction. So when we're really running the numbers, so you said like 2 to 5% of online leads, if
Mhm.
done correctly, you should be converting, right?
Yep.
You're going to be able to make that work for you. And of that 2 to 5%, 35 to 45%, that could be two opportunities or even more, referral and everything like that. So when you look at leads, what I'm taking from this is you should really be looking at the numbers. You need to be crunching the numbers and seeing what makes sense.
Yeah. So what I'll just say last thing on that, it's the lifetime value of acquiring that lead.
Mhm.
Now, here's the problem that I see, some agents make is they kind of look at the online leads that are coming in as the transaction for today. And although that's good, if you don't look at that future lifetime value, right? So that's kind of the point here, is that future lifetime value. If you don't look at that and have a nurture program in place, have a seller home valuation report, or, so once you sell them a home, sending them an update on what their current value is, doing things that you would do to your SOI, which is, maybe pop buys or doing an event, or, congratulating them on their anniversary. I mean, you have to do still that blocking and tackling of good follow-up and lead nurture and incubation. But now you've acquired them. Now this is a have not met that you've turned into a met, and you
Mhm.
have the ability to ask for referrals and to see if you can extend that lifetime value.
I think that's very important for everybody listening to keep in mind, because I've seen this so many times with agents. You are so, and even brokerages, so focused on, I've got these leads, I got 100 leads that came in. I'm so focused on trying to get that one that came into the sale that you don't necessarily think about how that lead, how that person works into your overall marketing strategy, your overall plan for staying in touch, for building your own brand, and for being that person that people can rely on out of, I'm just calling you constantly to try to get you to pick up. Like, I don't think people look at the whole picture necessarily when it comes to leads. So thinking about that and the possibilities and opportunities you do have from maybe purchasing some leads, thinking about doing that, how should you go about evaluating where to get started, looking at different lead sources and figuring out what makes sense for you?
Yeah, no, that's it's a great blocking and tackling question. And you have to, until you have your own metrics, right? So first of all, you need to have a tool that's measuring your conversions. You need to have, of the leads that have come in, how many of them did you actually make contact with? If
Mhm.
you made contact with them, how many of those did you actually schedule an appointment with? Then from there, how many of those did you actually go ahead and meet? Did you get to actually show a property to? How many of those did you get a buyer brokerage agreement signed with? And then eventually, how many of those did go under contract and then close? So if you're measuring those results along the way, and you have not only your end result, but you have a very good spectrum of what's happening from the time that lead comes in until you do close, it gives you a lot more opportunity to evaluate the conversion and then of course the ultimate success. So let's just do a quick example.
Okay.
And this is some high level math, and hopefully everyone can follow along. I'll make the numbers as quick, as round as possible. So if you had 100 leads come in, and let's just say each lead cost you $100,
Okay.
right? So now 100 times 100, you have your $10,000 in lead costs, right? Did I do my math right? Zero,
Yep,
zero,
I've
zero.
jotted it down here, and I just want to interrupt you really quickly.
Yep.
Um, After the show airs, when
Yep.
you're listening to it, we'll put all of this in the accompanying blog. So if anybody wants to look at it, for my visual people out there, and you want to look at the math that Scott is doing, we'll have it for you there too. So just head
Yes.
to the link in the show notes for that.
Awesome. That's a great. Thank you for that. So basically 10,000, or sorry, 100 leads, $100 each, round math, $10,000 you're spending on your leads. And let's just take a 3% conversion kind of in the middle of that
Mhm.
ratio that we talked about. So that would be out of 100, that would be three closings, right? 100 leads, $10,000, three closings. So that means that each one of those leads cost you $3,333 to acquire. That's
Right.
your cost of acquiring that sale. And so if you were to say we'd have to look at your sales price, right? You would
Mhm.
have to make sure that in this case, if I wanted to say it was about $375,000 house, my total GCI would be roughly 11,000 and change, right? 11,100. And if I took $3,333 of that, it's 30% of my GCI. So
Gotcha.
if you can look at a lead source and convert, say, the 3%, and it gives you that 30% cost of sale or less, then that's a worthwhile lead source to be able to use to move forward with. But if for some reason you were not closing 3%, you were the price of the properties were lower, then all of a sudden that math doesn't work, and it's not as good of a a value for you, and that's how you can kind of get that initial gut feel if it's a good decision for you to purchase them or not.
So you really have to know your numbers here. A lot of agents don't know what their average sales price is for listings and, working with buyers as well. But two, when you're going to purchase leads, a lot of times these are specific to geographic areas, correct?
Like
So
zip
you
codes or cities.
Mhm.
Yep.
So you really need to be paying attention to the numbers there as well when you're purchasing leads. And you mentioned, these leads were about $100 a lead. Is that kind of what you're seeing in the industry, or is that just for round numbers?
Well, it's kind of a pretty good average right now. I mean, there are markets where, to your point, Heather, they're lesser, like the lead sellers have gotten really sophisticated. They'll
Mhm.
look at the average, price point in a market, and they'll price their lead based on that average price point in the
Gotcha.
market. So maybe if it was a lower price point, maybe they would charge $75 for that lead. But let's just say it's a little bit higher of a median sales price or an average sales price in the market. Maybe it'll be $150 for the lead. So they've kind of figured out where that same threshold is of what they can do to lower or raise the price to make that the numbers work. The other thing to keep in mind is when you're evaluating a lead source is this going to be a shared lead, or is it going to be like an exclusive lead?
Mm.
And many of the lead sellers will offer different versions. So for example, they may offer one price if it's a shared lead, and then they may offer a different price if it's, say, an exclusive or a proprietary lead just going to one person. Now, I have some theories on that I can share if you want. It's think about this. If you have a person who's shopping for a home online and they're on, I'm just going to use some of the bigger names in the industry. So maybe they're on Zillow, maybe they're on Realtor, maybe they're on Redfin, maybe they're on, Trulia. So they're popping around, they're submitting multiple leads. So a lot of times buying an exclusive lead or someone that says it's an exclusive lead really isn't exclusive,
Hmm.
right? Because
Mhm.
they're out there submitting maybe multiple inquiries, or they're on different sites and different platforms. So just kind of keep that in mind when you're evaluating exclusive versus a shared, for example.
So what if just to take that back a little bit, what if you're not super familiar with what is the difference between a shared lead and an exclusive lead, and how does that work on the platform with the forms and the agents and all of that?
Yeah, no, it's great. So today, we when a consumer submits an inquiry, the platforms where these leads are coming from, they really want to make sure that that consumer has a good experience, right? I'm sure you've heard
Mhm.
of a C stat score, where it's a consumer satisfaction. So these platforms are super hyper focused on making sure that once people land on their platform, they're getting a good experience and someone's responding and giving them the information. And so no one ever knows if that agent's in a closing, or if they're on
Mhm.
vacation, or if in fact they're working with another buyer out showing homes. And so to them, it makes more sense to send the lead to multiple agents at once and have the agents that are available respond as quickly as possible. And so, this is also true of some of the other platforms out there, like in the referral network world. But in a sense, that's the premise of what they're trying to do.
Okay, so when you're looking at these different options and thinking about shared versus exclusive, I don't know if I've ever necessarily thought about exclusive leads. They're not really exclusive because you're so right. Um, the consumer, the buyer, is more than likely a buyer, they don't understand how these sites work. They don't know what's going behind the scenes with the leads. More than
Mhm.
likely, they might not be working with an agent yet. So they're on all these sites.
Yep.
Hopefully, they're not working with an agent yet, right? That's one of the other big
Well,
things.
we can talk about some scripts for that. Maybe that's
Okay.
another show for another time. But yes.
And you are kind of having to stand out from all of these other places other than that initial point where you might be purchasing the lead.
Yeah. I mean, so here's the thing, right? Back in the day, even when you and I first met and we were working on that project, something is still true today as it was then. It is speed to the lead.
Mhm.
You have to be able to respond to that lead right away. And you have to have a CRM system that has an automated response that can distribute the leads. First of all, an automated response is nice, right? But it's all based on speed to lead. So you have to have a system that has the ability to either round robin, to do an instant call, to text the leads out to a group of your agents. If you're a broker and you're running a team, or even if you're a solo agent, to be able to get notified through a text message to your phone with you can set a unique text noise every time a lead comes through, just so that you can jump on it and start working it right away. Just sending a text message just having an email go out is you're not going to win. You're
Mm-hmm.
not going to get to these leads fast enough.
So what you're saying is you should have a mixture of automated systems,
Mhm.
obviously that in-person touch, but there are a few little tricks here behind the scenes that you just shared. I love the idea of a different sound for when leads are coming in.
Yeah.
That's huge.
I mean, we all get text constantly on our
Mhm.
phones, right? And if you set a different ringtone or different noise and notification noise on your text that, hey, this is a lead coming in, you'll know that, hey, I got to jump on this and go get it.
Yeah, you're less likely to be like, "Oh, it's the home, the car warranty people calling me."
Right. Yeah. And there's certain systems like for example, when there's texting as one notification method. There's systems similar to like Sierra Interactive that actually can call you when that new lead comes in. So it takes a little bit of that guesswork out of what to do next, right? So all of a sudden, when your phone is ringing and you answer that call, then all of a sudden the system's automatically dialing the lead for you. And then when you say hello and answer, you have the other lead at the end of the call. And if anybody's ever done a Zillow Premier or Flex program, you've experienced this as well. But think about this for any of your lead sources. So this way you can take that guesswork or the delay out of calling. It automatically calls you and you pick up and boom, now you've won the lead. And then number two, you're connected to them and starting to have a conversation.
I think that's a big question that whether you're an agent or you're a brokerage, you have what you just said, what to do next.
Yeah.
So you get a lead, you have that special little sound that it makes, it comes through, however it comes through. What do you recommend as what do you do next?
Yeah. So like I said, it's so important to just call. You
Okay.
just have to call. And there's a saying out there, you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. If you take a minute to pull up your MLS or to pull up, an app and try to look up the property and see all the details about it, you've lost. There's going to be 5 or 6 other agents or 3 or 4 other agents, however many this lead was routed to, that are already calling and trying to get the person on the line. So the critical point is to just call and get the client and get the prospect on the line, right?
Okay.
Because then again, we can get into scripts and dialogues and what to say, maybe at another time. But the idea here is, and I'll give you a little sample of one. It's just like, hey, this is Scott giving you a call, from XYZ company. You just submitted a lead on realtor.com for 123 Main Street. While I looked that up for you, tell me, what was it about that property that caught your eye? And
Mhm.
so there's a couple things baked into that. Number one, you're telling them why you're calling, which boom, hey, there's reason for my call. Number
Mhm.
two, you're kind of letting them know you called regarding their inquiry on realtor.com. So that's why their phone rang, right? Because they were on the site probably right then. You caught them in the act, right? They're still, on their lead platform, or whichever one you're using. And then you say, hey, while I looked that up for you, tell me, what was it about this property that caught your attention? So what you're doing there is you're really giving yourself time to boot up your computer, to open your app, to look up the home, so then you can become more familiar with it, to possibly answer questions, see what the status is. Is it active? Is it under contract? Because then that'll certainly direct which direction you're going to go, with that prospect, right?
Absolutely. And in the same sense, when you ask that question, you're learning more about their needs. You can have a more casual, personal conversation with them.
Yeah, Zillow does a great job of this, and they kind of, teach the LP Mama, and it's basically kind of understanding a person's motivation, their price, where they're at with their timing. And so, and then again, if you don't know that, not familiar with it, just Google LP Mama and you can kind of look at
Can
all
you
the
repeat that
details.
again?
LP Mama. So
LP Mama. Okay.
yeah, it's just an acronym for the different things you need to kind of make sure you answer when you're engaging with a client, right? But basically, what to your point, Heather, if you're getting into more of the reason why they're looking and what's got them going, that shows you care about them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, I know this is a really small thing, but we try not to say, I got your lead,
Yes.
right? Because you don't want them to feel like a lead. You truly want them to say, hey, we received your inquiry, which I
Yes.
know it's a small little difference in a
That's
word,
huge,
but
huge, huge, huge.
but it can really set you apart from someone who's just like responding to a lead.
And two, I think we get so stuck in real estate that we don't realize a normal person is not a lead. They don't think of themselves as a lead.
Right.
If you know what I mean, if you step outside real estate and you think about yourself inquiring about something else, maybe it's a car, like another major purchase, different, but still a major purchase. If I called a dealership and they said, I was inquiring about your lead, I would immediately be put off by that.
Sure.
I wouldn't feel like a person. I wouldn't feel like they cared. I wouldn't, have that warm and fuzzy feeling that they're there to help me.
Yep.
So
Yep.
just little things like that. So if you're an agent and you're starting out, you're answering, you're following these scripts, you're working with people and following these systems, what are some of the other things that you should do? So we're answering the call right away. We've got a great intro, what we're saying to them on the phone. What are some other things that we could be doing?
So yeah, so once you're, most of the let's call them bottom of the funnel leads now. We'll
Hmm.
talk about the ones that are most transaction ready. Most of the reason when they're hitting that button or they're submitting that inquiry, there's one thing that they want, and they want to go see that property, right?
Gotcha. Hmm.
So the biggest mistake people can do is be like, "Oh, are you pre-qualified? What's your time frame?" You can ask them time frame, but you just kind of want to get right to the chase and be just like, "Hey, I have that property pulled up. Looks like it's a beautiful home here. I can see why you're really, really excited about this backyard because that's what they told me they were interested in.
Hmm.
So hey, well, do you have a question? Or are you looking to go book a tour and go see it? Right. And you're really wanting to move them towards what they're after, which is to go see the property. Um,
Okay.
yeah. Mhm.
A follow-up question there. Now we're moving them towards where their goal is, which I think is a great strategy, sales, marketing, both of those things. Do you ever have that follow-up question though? Because you don't want to be
Yes.
wasting your time either. Hey, are you pre-qualified? Have you talked to a lender? You know what I mean? Are you not just
Yeah.
completely off the wall
Are
kind
you
of
just looking to
person?
go tour properties because it's
Exactly.
fun, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, there, and it's again, it's kind of giving them what they want first by saying,
Gotcha.
hey, so great, looks like we can get you in there tomorrow at 2 or Thursday at 4, depending what day of the week it is. And so first of all, you give them a choice of 2 times. And this is another huge thing. And I know it's such a small detail that one of the biggest mistakes that an agent will make is they'll say something like, hey, so when do you want to go see the property?
Mhm.
It's wide open, right? And I don't know about, you guys, but there's always something personal on my schedule, right? There's
Mhm.
a kids event, there's a dinner, there's a sporting event that I want to go see. And if you just say, hey, when do you want to go see this home? Inevitably, it's a magnet because you got something on your calendar. They're going to pick the time when you have your event, right?
Right.
And so, one of the things that's important here is to control and direct when in fact it can work for you. So when you do go ahead and get to your computer, you pull up the property, you pull up your MLS schedule, and you see there's an opening, at 2 or at 4, you can then dictate that conversation. Hey, Heather, love to go ahead and get you scheduled. Does 2 o'clock or does 4 o'clock work better for you? And sometimes they'll say, oh gosh, neither of them, and you got to look for a third option,
Mhm.
fourth option. But a lot of times they'll say, oh, let's just do 4, right? And remember we talked about at the top, like it takes 100 leads to close 3.
Yes.
So you're going to have to, and remember we talked about all the different stages of conversion, like getting the appointment set, then getting it met. So you're going to have to go out and meet with a lot more than just 3 in order to get to your 3 with your conversion ratio. So you don't want to start to get, I'm going to say passive aggressive towards the leads, because
Right.
now they're taking your time and they're conflicting with your personal life. So if you just take control of the conversation and say, hey, so it's 2 o'clock better or 4 o'clock better, and it works for your schedule, it'll just be that much more of a, positive experience for everyone.
Yeah, and you're starting with the relationship side of things, but to your point, taking control of the conversation, you're showing off your professionalism,
Mhm.
what they can expect from you. There's a lot of subtle things in communication that set you up for success moving forward.
Yeah, and you made a good point by saying is 2 or 4 better. It's not like, hey, I'm an agent that has nothing to do,
Right.
right? I'm not busy. So you by kind of giving them those two choices, it kind of sets you up as, hey, I got stuff going on here. So, it's 2 or 4 better, right? So there's that.
Mhm.
I think there's then, once you've gotten the appointment and you've now set it, this is the best time to say, fantastic, I look forward to meeting you. Hey, just so one last question, right? And if you notice, there's a book behind me here. It's called Exactly What to Say. It's a great book if you guys haven't read it. Philip Jones is the author.
Okay.
But there's this, do you remember Columbo, the old series with Columbo, where he's a detective and he would be kind of asking his suspects questions. And then
Mhm.
right before he'd leave, he'd just say, hey, one more thing. And it was usually the question that would like nail his suspect as into being guilty, right?
Mhm.
Anyway, if you haven't seen Columbo, go Google it. I'm sure it's on YouTube or something,
I
right?
definitely heard of Columbo. I know what you're talking
All
about.
right,
I've seen
all
him like
right.
standing at the doorway, turning
That's
around.
right. That's right.
Okay.
So, oh, hey, just one more thing. As a professional, I would never want to step on another agent's toes.
Oh, that's a
Are
good one.
you currently working with any other agents?
Mm.
So now you've given them what they want. You've built rapport. You establish yourself as a professional. And now we're going to make sure you don't waste your time.
Mhm.
And a lot of different answers and scenarios, and this is again a whole nother series, but a lot more can come out of that answer of which way that direction goes, right? um but the best case scenario, they'll say to you, no, we've just started looking, we've been to a few open houses, we haven't done that. And so now you're saying, great, I'll certainly kind of do give you a little bit more explanation of how the brokerage or agency works in your state, right? And you can do that when you're out there face to face with them.
So after you have this conversation, you've got it scheduled, you're heading out to the property. What do you do in the between times? Do you have any type of key follow-up information you're sending over, digging deeper? What do you do in between that time?
Yeah, that's awesome. So there's two sides of that, right? One is if you're setting the appointment yourself, which is one thing. If you're ISA or if you have an inside salesperson that's helping you set appointments, there's kind of separate set of scripts for that. But let's talk about it if you set it for yourself.
Mhm.
So we set the appointment for 4 o'clock tomorrow, right? And or 4 o'clock this afternoon. If you go ahead and send a text, hey, are we still on for 4?
Okay.
There's a really good chance that their life has gotten crazy, that something has happened, right?
Mhm.
So instead, why not do something simple as this? Hey, I'm going to go buy Starbucks and I'm going to go grab a coffee. Can I grab something for you on my way when we meet at 4?
Ooh, love that.
Yeah. I have to give credit to Spring Benson and her team out in Utah for that one, and what they did as far as qualifying, their folks when they were setting appointments. So it kind of does the same thing. It still confirms the appointment,
Mhm.
right, to make sure they're on their way. But you're not asking, is it still good? You're saying, hey, I'm on my way. Do you want a coffee? And it kind of sets a little bit of a different tone.
Absolutely. That there's some really, really golden nuggets in here that we've talked about. I
Sweet.
think too with that one, you're also showing that you care, that you're a person, right? You're already building that relationship, which is so key back to the beginning of our conversation.
Mhm.
And like exactly what you just said, we're not just saying, "Oh my gosh, I hope to see you still there. You still going to go out with me?" kind of feeling.
Right. It's
It's
like,
like
hey, is
I'm
our date
expecting to
still
see you
on?
there.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I'm
Mhm.
expecting to see you there. I want to make the experience even better for you.
Yeah.
So that's wonderful. So those are some great ideas leading up to actually meeting with the customer. And I think so far, a lot of this conversation has been about if you're an agent and you're purchasing your own leads, you're going out there, or maybe you're getting them from a brokerage. How can a brokerage think about this? What can a
Yeah.
brokerage do to maybe better support their agents if they are providing leads to them so that they can get to that conversation where they're handing them the coffee and it's the start of this great relationship?
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So, you know, those metrics I talked about earlier, and as a broker, to be watching, or a team lead even, to be watching those conversion ratios. Because if you know your best agent has, and again, you can establish what your metrics are. But for example, let's just say when a raw lead comes in, you make contact with 50% of those, meaning you get 50% of those on the phone live, and you guys win that initial phone call. Then, there's a pretty good chance that if you're that first person, you should be able to get that appointment. So there's initial call, talk live. Then
Mhm.
there's contact, appointment set. And let's say that's 70%. Then appointment met should be pretty high. If you're doing those qualification scripts as a professional, never want to step on other agents' toes, you're finding out where they are in their process, you're just doing your whole coffee confirmation before you go, then you should be really close to 90% on those Mets. And then there's usually about a 50% again from Mets to BBA signed, right? So these are some just ratios that I've seen over the years. So as a broker or as a team lead, and you're watching an agent, and let's just say out of the 100 leads that they got, they've only got 20% on the phone. What does that tell you?
Mhm.
Well, if the average for our team is 50%, well, then that agent must be slow. So they're claiming the lead, but they're not calling the
Oh.
lead.
Mhm.
So the first thing that I would identify to me is, oh, they're not doing the script right. Hey, while I look that up for you, tell me, what was it about this home that made you push the button, and submit the inquiry? They're probably going out and researching it on the MLS and trying to get all the data first because they're afraid to call until they know all the information. And so you can kind of start to understand, hey, there's a little breakdown in this little section. Or let's say they're doing well on the meeting, right? And they're calling right away, they're getting them on the phone, but let's just say their appointment set to Met ratio is low. And so they're setting the appointments, but now people are blowing them off.
Ugh.
So then I'm probably thinking to myself, okay, they haven't, they didn't ask the question about the agent, they didn't do the coffee script, right? And you can kind of start to just dissect where the process is breaking down, because the margins are a little bit thinner when you're looking at a team lead or as a broker, because there's a split involved, right?
Mhm.
And if the broker is paying for, or is providing the leads to his team or her team, then there has to be some really sharp accountability on those different stages in that lead qualification process.
So as a broker or as the team lead, is that then a point of a coaching opportunity? Would you
Yep.
come at it from a more positive angle or like, hey, you're not meeting your metrics? What do you see
No,
works there?
you're off the team. No more leads for you. Um, No, you can't be that way. You do really need to look at this as coaching. And some of the great systems like CRM systems like Sierra, for example, there's actually a call recording ability on there. So as soon as that call is
Oh.
answered, the call is recorded. And there's certain states, and I know there's going to be folks that say, oh, we can't record calls in our state. Everyone has a little different rules. But most of them, if you disclose that you're calling, then you're allowed to. Other states, it doesn't matter. But you just got to look at your own state rules and make sure you're doing it right. But the idea is that by recording the calls, you can go back and listen and then use that as coaching, and
Mhm.
just be like, hey, I didn't really hear this, particular question, or why didn't you ask if they're working with an agent, or what happened? And then of course, that can help them improve it for the future.
Yeah. And I would say as a follow-up from that, because working with agents, but also myself working with more staff, marketing departments, I think it's always so important that we are critical of ourselves and there is actually empowerment there. So
Mhm.
for me personally, I watch my webinars again. I will watch myself public speaking just to see, that part where I messed up, was it a big deal or was it not that noticeable? And
Mhm.
I've internalized it. And this is what I try to teach people as well, is this is a tool that you can use to better yourself, because I feel like that conversation can quickly turn into you're judging me, you know what I mean? And I feel like I'm being picked apart. But
Mhm.
if you encourage that too as self-reflection, even if you're great, your conversion rates are great, could they be better? Is there an opportunity that you're missing? And as a bonus to that, you get more comfortable hearing yourself, which helps in other ways with video and other kinds of marketing. So I think it's all about how you approach some of these strategies. So it always comes from that place of care and improvement too.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. I mean, it cannot be come down as a critical, being harsh and negative, right? It's like, hey, it almost goes back to this. And again, we haven't spoken about any of this, but hey, you told me when we did your annual plan that you wanted to make 100,000 this year. In order to make 100,000, we're going to get so many from your sphere, so many from Popeye, so many from your tennis team, and then some of the rest of the deals we were going to have to get from the online
Hmm.
leads and do online conversion. So based on that, we're not currently on pace to hit your goal. And one of the areas that we need to improve is obviously these online conversions, because I really want to help you meet your goal, right? So it really all comes from that perspective, and that goes back to goal setting and coming up with all that ahead of time. So
And knowing your numbers is huge for everybody listening. Huge, huge, huge. To
yep.
know your numbers, whether you're using some kind of CRM, a lead management system, if you just have an Excel sheet, you'll be so much better off than not knowing. And if you're not meeting these numbers, then you might be making some mistakes. So, what are some of those mistakes that you see a lot from agents? And maybe even what are you seeing from the brokerages that are trying to support the agents?
So let me start with the broker real quick, since we've been talking on the broker side. So first of all, giving an agent as a team lead, giving your agents too many leads can be a bad thing, because going back to the other side of this, it's you know once you call the lead the first time and you don't get them live, right? So for example, you call, you're not the fastest, you got the voicemail, they're not picking up, right? So first of all, you just can't call once. You need to call 3 or 4 times in that first initial period when the lead comes in, to try to catch the lead. But let's just say you don't catch the lead, and it happens, and someone's faster than you still need to keep calling. You need to
Mm.
call at least for the next 7 to 10 days. And here's why. And again, this is kind of an agent mistake, but it's tied into a broker.
Hmm.
So first of all, one, sometimes when people submit these leads, they're something happens, their kids crying, they're get distracted, they're at work, they can't talk right now.
Right.
So it's amazing if you call multiple times, then you'll catch them at a place where you can't. So let's just say you don't catch them though, and it's multiple days have gone by. And let's say they went out and met that agent at the home the next day. And if you keep calling, right? And there's a good chance, and I'm not saying it happens all the time, but there's a good chance they met that agent, and guess what? They weren't that impressed. They didn't like them. There wasn't a connection. They weren't professional. They weren't prepared. So you still have this ability to nurture that person, right? So number one, keep calling. Number two, get them on an automated property alert right away. Try to get them into your ecosphere, right? So a system, for example, like Sierra Interactive, once you get them on a property e-alert and they start to search and view the homes that are coming through, you then be able to, you see intel into how often they're coming back to the website, what properties they're clicking on, what cities they're searching in, how many times they viewed a home. And there's also behavioral triggers that happen from this data that help you decide, oh gosh, which lead should I call today based on those behaviors, right? So there's a short-term gain of getting that lead, being speed to lead, but there's also the long-term gain of nurturing them and following up with them, getting them on a property alert, and seeing if you can't flip that lead, is kind of the language that we used to say, once they maybe even met and got to see that initial property with that initial agent, but they weren't that happy.
So here's a quick question to that. So you weren't able to get in touch with them. Keep calling them. You're setting up a property alert, I'm assuming based on the criteria of that home, or if there was any other opportunity to provide feedback. Should you let them know? Should you send them a text, leave them a voicemail? I don't even know. Send them a video saying, hey, I haven't been able to get in touch with you. I noticed that you were interested in this home. I'm going to be sending you similar homes. If that's not the type of home you're looking for, let me know and I will update the search. Do you recommend doing something like that?
Oh my gosh, 100%. Big time, especially a video. If you could do a personalized quick video and just says and show them who you are,
Mhm.
and send them that quick professional message, I guarantee your conversion rates are going to go through the roof, right? And the message can be pretty simple to what you just said, Heather. It's just, hey, I know I've been trying to reach you. You may have gotten contacted by another agent, but just wanted to follow up and let you know I put you on a property search based on this home. If there's anything that I can do to edit or change this search criteria, just shoot me a quick email, respond back to that. If I can help you in the future, let me know. Simple. And it doesn't have to be 20 minutes long. It could be 20 seconds long, and they see you as a professional,
Mhm.
and then all of a sudden your property searches are coming over and over and over again, and you're seeing that they're opening them. That's a good sign.
So are you seeing that a lot? Are people leveraging video and is that helping in lead acquisition and conversion?
Yeah, video is huge. The folks who have gotten comfortable being on camera and doing a video from their car, not in a professional studio, putting their phone up and saying, but they missed the lead, they didn't get it right, they tried to call it, they weren't fast enough, and right there on the spot, just say, hey Heather, this is Scott, right? And have that video and just pop it out, whether you're using BombBomb or some of the other
Mhm.
platforms that can send out videos. It's certainly going to set you apart. I don't have specific ratios of conversion, but I can tell you it's certainly a lot higher to send them a video versus just a text or an email.
Oh, yeah. And if we look at going back to, 'cause we've used a lot of stats here in this episode, when we think about the use of video and, the marketing stats even show that video 100% increases engagement and conversion. It is been proven. It's not a new thing. And
Yep.
I try to think about myself, outside of real estate again. I'm interested in a home. There has been a lot been going on in the real estate market right now in the past several years, for as long as I've been in real estate, really. But let's be real. And I might be concerned about interest rates. I might not understand what's going on. And then I head to one of these search sites and maybe my phone does blow up. Let's be real. I start getting contacted by multiple people if it's that shared lead situation. If somebody sent me a video and made me feel special, made me feel heard, I got to see them and that they're real. Hey, I'm at a showing, I'm in my car, but you're important enough to me that I'm just stopping for a second to acknowledge you and say that I'm here to help. That would leave me with such a good feeling. And I wouldn't be expecting somebody to be a news reporter, have the perfect video set up, but that personal touch, I know that I would feel like that really stood out to me. That made me feel heard and that you care. I'm not a lead. I'm a person working towards that goal.
Love it. Yeah, you said it, perfect. And I would also just add though that you got to be able to call and text and video and call and text and video for 7, 10 days and not have a response. And
Mm,
don't take it personally.
right.
And, and all of a sudden, this person is going to respond on the 11th day after you said, okay, I'm done calling. And they'll be just like, hey, Scott, got your messages. Thank you so much for your persistence. I'd love to go see this house on Tuesday. Can you arrange that? And you're just like, yes, right.
It was
Um,
worth it.
It was worth it. But you got to do a lot of calling into what we call kind of a void, right? No
Mhm.
response. No, you don't know if you're reaching. Are we breaking through? I don't know. But you have to trust it that time over task is going to get you the result that you want.
100%. So I know we have covered a lot today. Thinking about leads and does it make sense for today's market? Well, 100% it can. You have to know your numbers. And I loved what you said earlier about thinking about your goal. What percentage of your business is paid leads? What percentage is sphere broken down even further? Where are they coming from in your sphere? You have to know all of those things.
Mhm.
So, going into buying leads and setting yourself up for success, could you leave us with just a few tips, some easy things that you could do to
Mhm.
help increase the conversion of working with these online leads?
Yeah, a couple quick things I'll share. One, if you're a broker, I would say you need to lead a scripts class.
Ooh,
So if
okay.
you're a team lead or a broker, the scripts that I've kind of said today, they roll off my tongue only because during my time as a team lead for a team, we did scripts and role play constantly, and they have to become natural. They have to be ingrained. So number one, definitely lead. I always suggested doing a morning huddle, 15, 20 minutes, kick off the day. Everyone goes through the script 2 or 3 times. You rotate that script, throughout, what you're going to work on. Are you going to work on the initial script? Are you going
Mhm.
to work on, do you have an agent script? Are you going to work on a specific objection handler script? We kind of rotate around. So number one, do scripts, practice them, because it'll only help your agents perform better. Number two, you have to get past the reflex no. And this is again, a lot of agents are high eyes. They're very, they're influencers. They're out there. They're bubbly. They talk. They're all excited. And you have to be able to realize that sometimes people are going to say, "Hey, I'm walking into a department store." Again, dating myself.
Mhm.
Department store, right? Do they even exist? Walking into a retail store, and someone comes up to you and says, "Hey, can I help you?" What's the first thing that you do?
I'm browsing.
No, just looking, right?
Uh-huh.
Yes, I'm browsing. So you really have to get used to pushing past that reflex no.
Mhm.
Hey, this is Scott. I'm just reaching out to you regarding 123 Main Street. Are you looking to see the problem? Do you have any questions? No, I'm set right now, right? And so you have to be able to then say, well, great, I understand you're set right now, but tell me, what was it about this house that caught your attention? Go deeper. Oh, okay, a big backyard. Why is that big backyard important to you? Well, you might think they want to play with their kids, but it turns out, that they really want a big backyard because they want a garden, right? And
Mm.
so you can kind of dissect this and truly get to the bottom the bottom reason and get past that reflex no is kind of what I'm saying there. So that's another thing. I said experts with your scripts. We said that, and then calling these people 7 to 10 days, in a row. I think that's huge. And I would say that you have to have everything in your CRM. You
Okay.
have to have it being very organized, systematic. You have to have reminders of tasks that are popping up for you. Because if you start to get, 75, 100 leads in your database, right, for you as an agent, online leads, you got to keep them straight. You got to remember who to call, when to call. So having them in a system, and a spreadsheet would obviously be better than nothing, but having them in a professional CRM, say for example, Sierra Interactive, will really help you keep yourself organized and focused on what you need to do.
And accountable. You
Yes.
see it, and this whole conversation is how to not waste money when you're purchasing leads.
Mhm.
And you have to watch your money, right? And we're watching our money by watching our leads, following up with systems, making sure that we are leveraging all the tools and the technology out there, but also still having a personal approach. I love how you started this conversation with it's an opportunity, of course, to have a closing, but it's an opportunity to grow your sphere, grow your network, and continue to grow within the real estate industry. So I want to thank you so much for your insight today. I feel like we just scratched the surface of leads. There's so many different directions we could have gone. So where can people follow you, learn more about you, and also see what you're doing with Sierra Interactive and what's going on there and the opportunities for making leads work within your business?
Yeah, awesome. So obviously it's Sierra, as in the Sierra Mountains, interactive.com. And there's a whole bunch of information there. And we'll put, I guess we'll put a link below as well that you guys can just, read on our website and kind of learn about the system. But if you really want to know more and truly get an in-depth feel, go ahead and schedule a demo. We have some great account executives that can kind of walk you through the system. Sierra Interactive is a full site from website to lead conversion to even being able to purchase in additional leads and flow through your system. So it's a full-fledged system that you can operate in. But go ahead and take a look at that. If you want to just ping me, have specific questions for me, best is through LinkedIn. And it's just Scott DeRuiter, one word, at the end of my LinkedIn profile. Be more than happy to answer any questions you have.
Perfect. We will put all of that in the blog post that goes with this, which you can find in the show notes. So you can reach out to Scott, pick his brain, learn more about Sierra Interactive. And I hope this conversation really inspired people today to look differently at leads if you're not currently purchasing leads. And if you are already working leads, you got a few ideas of how you can do things differently, or a reminder of something that you haven't been doing in a while, so that we can be more successful leading into the future of what we're experiencing now in real estate and what is yet to come. So thank you so much, Scott, for being on the show.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.